The MLS TV deal was a major stepping stone for the Major League Soccer in 2014. Um, they broke away from their previous television deal and signed a new contract worth over 9 times the previous deal. The new television deal would be with ESPN, Fox Sports, and Univision for the Spanish-speaking market. This was a over a 250% increase from the previous deal, with the total being around $7 million a year for ESPN and Fox Sports, and substantially less for Univision. That's according to SB Nation in 2014 when the news first broke. But where did the issues arise with the deal and the negotiation of the terms? More money and the same problems. It was a much larger deal, um, and it negatively impacted the pro soccer world in North America. This was a record deal for Major League Soccer, the most money that had ever been received, but the market was in line with the WNBA and even pro bass fishing, according to SB Nation in the article that was recently referenced. So, would it pay off for ESPN to buy the rights to the streaming service of the matches? And it would. The deal benefited ESPN far more than it did the MLS. Major League Soccer would make about $300 million shy of $1 billion over an 8-year time span, with the total being around $720 million. And it's not a lot of money for a major league sport, especially one with the tier of Major League Soccer. It is the um, top tier of soccer in North America. Granted, the turnout and viewership for Premier League or UEFA or anything like that is much higher, with it being international play. The MLS would have their out of market games played through ESPN3 when the deal first came through, but shortly after ESPN introduced ESPN Plus, which was a subscription-based service through the ESPN app, and they would begin to play more and more out-of-market games through ESPN Plus. I know for me, Atlanta United played on Fox Sports, except for the national games, and Atlanta is an outlier for this market as their viewership and fan base is much larger than most MLS teams. The MLS have a variety of interests coming into the negotiation with different streaming providers. The major two that I could find out from doing research was the lack of viewership and the increased revenue. So prior to this, viewership was substantially lower. As I previously stated, they were more in line. Their market was more with the WNBA, the National Lacrosse League, and pro bass fishing. It's more of a niche sport prior to 2014. Of course, everyone knew names like the LA Galaxy simply because David Beckham played for the team. But after David Beckham left the Galaxy, and there wasn't a ton of growth for the MLS. NBC held the rights to the English Premier League at this point, and a fan base for those teams is much larger, and it brings a higher turnout of viewership, and in return, more profit. In 2014 and even today, the MLS is viewed as a retirement league for former superstars such as Wayne Rooney, um, and the MLS wants to get away from that as they're the top tier league in the United States. The TV companies had a different outlook on it. They had seen the potential growth for the MLS, and this was even prior to Atlanta United being announced as a team. Soccer is the largest sport in the world, and young talent was beginning to move into the MLS to try and get to the Premier League. So, what bargaining positions did ESPN and the MLS have? ESPN came into this knowing that they're the largest sports outlet in the United States, Canada, and even overseas. They knew that the MLS wanted to get away from their current deal, and they would do almost anything to be with ESPN and have that name, that brand on them to help grow the league. MLS, on the other hand, knew that they were the highest tier of soccer in the United States, and that NBC Sports had the Premier League locked down so that ESPN most likely would never be able to uh, get that deal. So they knew that ESPN was fighting for a chance to have a top tier league of soccer play on their channels, and that they would do anything to have the MLS. So who's the winner here? In my view, and after doing research on this subject, I would say that the winner is the streaming service and the broadcast companies. The reasons for that being is the revenue generated for the MLS compared to the other TV deal, such as the NFL or MLB, was substantially lower and cost ESPN and these streaming services much less money to broadcast the games. And then with the introduction of things like ESPN Plus, uh, they knew that they could generate even more money through the subscriptions. While some of the money went to directly to the team, they still were able to make a profit off of the streaming service subscriptions. And then the third thing is that they were paying less money due to the fact that they were splitting the streaming broadcast rights with two other companies, Univision and Fox Sports. So what went wrong? Looking at the recent reports, the benefits of this deal are sad and the negatives outweigh the positives for the teams in this situation. In 2018, only 7 of the teams turned a profit, and only 3 of those teams made a profit of over $1 million. The highest being Atlanta United with $7 million. So at this moment, the league's losing money, the viewership is down, and everything like that. And so the plan looked good on paper, and they knew that they would get more influence and publicity through major sites, but the money involved was not nearly enough to survive. So the next TV deal comes in 2023, and this goes right along in line with the 25-year plan that the MLS incorporated a couple of years ago when this TV deal came out. They released a new deal, a 25-year plan to show growth and expansion, in which we see the expansion going on currently with new teams coming every couple of years. But in order to survive in this league, they need to be able to turn a profit and be able to negotiate better. This was a win-lose situation, and maybe if they had a different outcome, maybe if they had, a mediator or someone like that, or an arbitrator to go in and say, let's look at this deal from a different standpoint. I feel that they went into this deal blind and with the thought of, hey, we're going to be on ESPN, and ESPN said, hey, we can get this sports league out of money. But what went right? Everything went right for ESPN. Granted, viewership isn't the best, but ESPN, Fox, and Univision are paying minimal money for a sports market that should grow quickly with the growth of pro soccer fan base in the United States. Look at the turnout for every single Atlanta United game. They sell out the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium in downtown Atlanta almost every game with anywhere from 40 to 70,000 people. And again, this is a win-lose situation for MLS and ESPN. ESPN is sweeping the floor with MLS, knowing that they are getting top-tier players and outcomes of games and highlights and promotions and everything like that, while the MLS is saying, look at all the money we're losing by not having a TV rights deal that benefits us at all. And here are the references. As you see, I got most of my information from The Guardian, SB Nation, the Philadelphia Inquirer, and CNBC. They looked at looking at the true math and financial standpoint more than a negotiation. The information was less than I expected going in depth on the details of this deal. So kind of breaking down and looking at the information, it just shows that the negotiation tactics weren't there for the MLS. And it was almost like a kid in a candy shop for ESPN. They were able to go in and say, we can get this deal for whatever we want because they so badly wanted out of their current deal.